Hello, everyone. Before we get into today's episode of Lighten Up the Art of Living Clutter-Free, guest today is the amazing Wendy Lauritsen, an EFT practitioner who guides us through a sample tapping sequence during the episode. If you're listening on audio only, do not worry. You'll still be able to follow along easily. Wendy explains every step clearly so you can tap right along with us. And if you'd like a visual or written guide to support your practice, Wendy is happy to send you a tapping sheet. Her email is in the show notes, so just reach out to her directly. You're going to love this one.
I'm Melanie, your host, coach, and guide on this journey to help you design a life that you love. Whether it's clearing out your kitchen cabinets, untangling your digital files, or letting go of the mental blocks that hold you back, we're here to make space for what truly matters. Let's lighten up together, starting now.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Lighten Up, the Art of Living Clutter-Free, where we talk about all things clutter. Not just talking physical, we're talking about the mental clutter as well. And for that purpose, I have a special guest with us today. It's Wendy Lauritsen, who is a certified holistic health coach, an EFT tapping practitioner, and spiritual guide. She helps busy professional middle-aged women and moms improve their diets, identify key areas of stress causing them to feel drained, and teach them how to eliminate it with easy techniques. She also provides support for those going through a difficult spiritual awakening. Wendy, thank you for being here.
Melanie, it's great to be with you.
So we're going to dive right in because Wendy has a great story and has a lot to say about how she helps women. And most importantly, she's going to take us through an EFT tapping exercise, which I think everybody is going to find very interesting and fulfilling and rewarding and all the things. So Wendy, tell us what your path was on becoming a holistic health practitioner.
Well, like so many people and particularly coaches, I had my own severe struggles with health at a very young age. I had severe digestive issues, hospitalizations, emergency room type things, ICU visits, just really tough. And I was struggling with it for most of my young adulthood. They didn't know if it was UC or what. It was not defined, but it certainly changed my life a lot. And
when you say UC, are you talking about a sort of colitis?
yeah, it wasn't real defined as that. It was sort of, we're not really sure if it was IBS or if it was something more severe, although it was severe enough to put me into the hospitals multiple times throughout my life. So I started to explore diet and considered alternative treatments and methods. So it really started just with my own health issues. And then years ago, I started going through a really difficult period in my life. I was in a job that was unfulfilling, very stressful. And I wanted to become a coach. And I had already known about EFT tapping, the energy modality. I had learned about it probably 20 or 25 years before that. And I was very curious about it, but I just did it for myself and I taught my kids how to do it, things like that. And just sort of kind of had it on the back burner a little bit and like, oh, this is interesting, but wasn't really fully engaged in it. And then when all these things started happening, I started to get new symptoms and everything's related to the gut. Probably because my gut was still messed up and didn't really know it at the time, but you just try to get by and you try to have some normalcy in your life. But I started to have severe joint pain. And so I did a deep dive in that, went to different practitioners. But it's very important to note that there was a lot of personal things going on. It was a very difficult time. My mom was sick. There was a lot of family issues. In hindsight, you learn that it's all for the greater good. It's all to, for you to grow, for your soul to evolve. But you don't know that when you're going through it, and it's really tough. So I was getting certified as a health coach. I started to pull in the tapping, but all while this was going on, I had all this other stressful stuff going on in my life. So it was too much. I was in constant pain. You go from one person to another. You don't really know what you're doing and you're taking it all in. And it was just a lot. And then you start to find answers. You start to find food that works for you, that isn't inflaming you. And then you start to learn techniques. And I started to use the tapping more, and then gradually started to get the business going, and things did calm down. Unfortunately, a lot of times you end up losing people that you love, whether they pass over or that these relationships are not working for you and they're creating a lot of disease and stress in your life. So that was a very difficult part of it. But in the end, it's for the better. And that's where the whole spiritual component comes in, because my relationship with Source, it changes. And when you have that deep, dark time in your life, as they call it, the dark night of the soul, although I always kind of chuckle at that because it wasn't a night. I mean, it was years. It was very, very difficult. But you start to really think about your faith and your belief from a spiritual perspective, from the soul. So that's why I really like helping people who are going through a difficult spiritual awakening, because it can be relationships. I mean, we always have those going on. You can have your career that doesn't feel fulfilling, or financial stress. And then you have your health. If that starts declining, it really wakes you up. I mean, it's like red lights flashing. There's no denying this. And then it's interesting about the health aspect, because when it really starts to deteriorate, it makes you look at everything else in your life. It's that old thing, mind, body, spirit. You can't separate them. And that's the approach that I take when I help people. There's a lot of deeper things going on under the surface that we really try to avoid and deny because it's painful. And so you have to be very kind and loving as you go through that.
Give yourself grace. You know, it's like, okay to be upset. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to, have all of the emotions. Emotions are not good or bad. They're emotions. You made me think about something that comes up an awful lot. And that is about stress and other uncomfortable emotions finding their way to the gut. We are told, go with your gut instinct. And what that implies to me is that the gut is the second brain. If I'm using my gut to decide things, and that may sound silly to some people, but at the end of the day, for me, as someone with IBS, I know exactly when I'm experiencing stress that I'm not even aware of, because I get it in the gut first, and then recognize these are the things that I'm trying to bottle up. These are the things I'm trying to ignore and put on the back burner. And they don't want to be on the back burner. They don't want to be ignored. And I know that because they're screaming in the second place, and that's my gut. And so I think it's very valuable to recognize that, because I think that there are a lot of people out there that have gut issues and they just write them off to something I ate, which can be true, something I drank, which can be true. It could be lack of sleep, that can be true, but we also need to dig a little deeper and see what is the connection between the mind and the body.
And how many times do you feel it in the gut? If you really tune into your body, you're going to feel it there at some point. You can be very out of tune. We can get so used to just ignoring things. There's just this disconnect with our body. And I say that with sympathy. Life can be very challenging for people, especially as you get older. Chances are you've gone through some stuff. There's just no escaping it. You're at some point you're going to have loss or grief or betrayal or shame or guilt, and sometimes even at a very young age. And then you have the fun of carrying that your whole life, and at some point you have to deal with it.
Yeah, and we need to be very careful to not be Pollyanna about this. Oh, it'll be okay, and it'll get better. Or as opposed to that, I actually may need to work at making it better. I may have to put some time and energy into that. That doesn't mean it's going to fix everything either. For those who are listening who have never heard of EFT tapping, why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. It stands for Emotional Freedom Techniques. And you have an issue that's come up for you. It's therapy. It also is married with acupuncture. So you're tapping on these points while you're tuning into your issue. What it does is it calms the amygdala down, the part of your brain that has that fear, that area that can get very triggered by something. You have something external, and it's going to maybe it reminds you of something that happened when you were a child. So your brain doesn't forget that, and it makes the connection. The conscious part of you knows that it's unrealistic. You're thinking, why am I afraid of that dog? Or why am I afraid to go on a plane, or why am I afraid to get into this car? Whatever it might be, fear, phobia, anything. And so you're thinking, yeah, what is it? And you're not really sure. And so it's a good opportunity. You can experiment with it. While you're tapping on these acupressure points, you're tuning into it and you're letting your body know that you're safe. Even though you're still getting triggered by it in the present, you are okay. Because you are safe, but your body doesn't know that. And then your brain starts to go into the anxiety and the fear of whatever. People tap on all kinds of issues. It can be things that seem relatively easy or simple to very deep work with it as well, like from childhood trauma and things like that.
Thank you for that explanation, because I know there are going to be a lot of people who are watching or listening, depending on what platform they use. And they're going to say, oh, yeah, I've tried tapping before. And there are going to be a lot of people who have no idea what you're talking about. And, we discussed before recording that I am in the middle of a 30-day tapping practice, which doesn't mean I'm going to stop tapping after it, but I might give myself the weekends off. Or I may, at the end of the 30 days, choose to tap on a different subject. But I'm happy that you brought up trauma, because I have been tapping on mindset and addressing limiting beliefs when it comes to my business, and in particular to money. And it wasn't until I started tapping with a coach that I realized where that was coming from. And there was childhood trauma associated with money. But it took a few times before we really came to that realization. So I ask that people try this with a very open mind. You have no idea what you're going to tap into, so to speak. Wendy is going to do a tapping exercise with us. Before we get started, Wendy, can you talk about what those pressure points are?
Yeah, of course. I applaud you for being so diligent and tapping every day. It's great. Even 10 minutes, you can feel a difference. I know people are busy, but you just pick a time and do it. But the first point is on the side of the hand.
Describe that part of the hand.
Yeah.
Radi chop. And is it tapping with one finger, two fingers, three fingers, four fingers? Does it matter?
We usually use the four fingers, just the fingertips. You don't count how many times you tap. It's just a gentle tapping on the side of the hand or the karate chop point, either side. And you would say the setup statement, which we'll do. And the next point is the eyebrow point. So it's on the inner eyebrow right there, right at the end. And then the next point is on the side of the eye. Again, you can do a couple fingers, you can do all your fingers, side of the eye, and then it's under the eye, on the bone is the next one. And then under the nose, just a few taps, under the mouth. It's funny, as we're tapping, I can actually kind of I almost feel a little bit more relaxed, and we're not even really doing it yet. And then it's under the collarbone. So you find your collarbone point, either side. You can also use both hands.
I always tapped, but I was taught recently by the coach I'm working with to do it in a fist.
You can do the fist. And then the next one is under the arm, either side, about like 5 or 6 inches down under the armpit.
Right on the wire of your bra.
And then on top of the head. Right in the middle, either hand. So those are the points. There's many acupuncture points, but those are the points that they use that are like makeup. They call the basic recipe. So what do you want to tap on? The idea actually is to be very specific when you're doing it.
What would be great, since where we started was how you got to tapping, and it had to do with a health issue, because my listeners are predominantly women. And then in that group, predominantly middle-aged. I'm sorry to the 20-somethings that listen. I love you guys. But maybe we can tap on hot flashes and the night sweats and the forgetfulness, like those. Can we tap on that? Does that sound fair?
Yeah, I'm just, it kind of came to mind is the overall changes that happened. It's interesting because they're not really changes you want, but they're changes you have to go through. So that's what's kind of tough, is that you're kind of stuck going through it. It's like the symptoms are going to happen, but you can lessen the stress of it, is what I'm saying. You know that feeling when you're just fighting something, and if you can calm your nervous system down, you can the idea that you're going through these changes and to try to be more gentle with yourself, and that you can't stop the changes. They're going to happen.
I love that. I think that's perfect.
This wasn't rehearsed or anything. Before we start, is you would want to tune into this and rate it on a scale of 1 to 10. So like if you are so frustrated with these symptoms and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't stand this menopause. It's driving me nuts. It's taken over my life. It's all I'm thinking about. Then you're probably at a 10. Or if you're kind of like, I feel hot sometimes, and sometimes my sleep's off and I feel a little foggy, but I'm getting by, then maybe you're just like at a 2. So make sure you rate it before you tap. Okay. So you're just gonna come up with a number at whatever it is. Let's just say it's like a 7 or something like that. So even though, and then Melanie, you'll repeat after me. So
I
even though
will.
I have, and I'm gonna kind of, just so you get a whole sort of cohesive look at it, I'm gonna kind of have some general statements and then I'll do some more specific, just so that people know, so that your audience knows you want to be as specific as possible,
Right.
so that you get to the core of it. So even though I have these menopausal symptoms,
Even though I have these menopausal symptoms,
I love and accept myself anyway.
I love and accept myself anyway.
Even though I feel like these menopausal symptoms are consuming me,
Even though I think these menopausal symptoms are consuming me,
I love and accept myself anyway.
I love and accept myself anyway.
Even though I have these menopause symptoms,
Even though I have these menopausal symptoms,
I know they will pass at some point.
I know that they're going to pass.
And you can end it any way you want. You don't have to say love and accept, but that's been a general statement, because you still want to know that you do support yourself through all of this, whatever you're going through.
Sure.
So then we're going to go to that eyebrow point. So these menopause symptoms,
These menopause symptoms,
they really seem like they're active right now.
they really feel active right now.
Sometimes I feel like it's all I talk about. And we're going through each of the points, and it doesn't matter which point.
All these symptoms,
In the chin point, I had no idea how much attention they would take.
I had no idea how much attention they would take.
They kind of are distracting.
They're kind of distracting.
To the arm. Sometimes it's sleep.
Sometimes it's sleep.
Sometimes it's hot flashes that make me feel like I'm on fire.
Sometimes it's hot flashes that make me feel like I'm on fire.
Eyebrow. Sometimes it's just a lot of confusion and brain fog.
Sometimes it's a lot of confusion and brain fog.
It's really frustrating to have these menopause symptoms,
It's really frustrating to have these symptoms.
because I know I just have to go through them.
I know I just have to go through them.
Maybe I can try
Maybe I can try
to just be a little bit more gentle with myself.
to just be a little more gentle with myself.
Maybe I could treat myself
Maybe I could treat myself
with a lot of more care and kindness.
with a lot more care and kindness.
Maybe I could treat myself
Maybe I could treat myself
like my best friend.
like my best friend.
It doesn't matter what point you're on. You don't have to worry about it. Yeah. All these menopause symptoms
All these menopause symptoms
that are just part of life.
that are just part of life.
And if I'm a little bit more relaxed about it,
If I'm a little bit more relaxed about it,
that these symptoms won't be as pronounced.
these symptoms won't be as pronounced.
And maybe I will feel less frustrated by it.
Maybe I'll feel less frustrated by it.
And it's always great to just be more loving.
It's great to be more loving.
There's never enough kindness
There's never enough kindness
to fill my beautiful body up with.
fill my beautiful body up with.
And we can just stop right there. So we went through 3 times, and you tune in and see how you feel. See where your number's at, and just feel, if you just feel a little bit more relaxed, a little bit more accepting, a little bit more loving.
Thank you so much for that. For those who are watching or listening, I already feel calmer. And for the people who know me really well, calm is often not in my vocabulary. That is one of the reasons why I love this practice. So I'm just such a New Yorker. Everything's on fast forward here, there, everywhere, which makes something like this even more important and valuable to me. All questions about what we were practicing. First of all, anybody listening, Wendy's going to give us her email. If you email her, she can provide you with a worksheet. And to her point, it doesn't matter which point you're tapping on, as long as you're tapping on one of those points. Something that I picked up in my own practice, and I heard from yours today, is we have to say the negative things. This is not one of those moments to avoid talking about the bad thing. It's allowing the bad thing to transition to more acceptance and love, within ourselves. Is that right?
Exactly. I'm so glad you brought that up, because people they'll be like, why am I focusing on the negative? I'm trying so hard to not think about it, to not dwell on it. But with that constant avoidance, it's like a little kid that's going to keep like tugging on you. I'm not going away. This is the emotion that I have with it, especially menopause. Everybody has a different experience with it. Some women sail through it and some really struggle with it. I mean, it's not just the physical symptoms, it's all these external things that are usually happening at the same time, like children moving away, parents might be sick or passing. Maybe they're coming to the end of their career or they're switching careers or they're worried about retirement. These are major things that are coming in and affecting you. So anything that you can do, I'm all for like whatever modality works for you. I think it's great. I think meditation is huge. I just want to put a shout out there because I just have started in the last 2 years a very serious meditation practice. So I think it's great. This is just a nice tool for people to use whenever they can. It's kind of like you have it in your back pocket and you're like, hey, you know what? I've got 10, 15 minutes. I'm going to do this. But so it's basically, to your point, giving the negative a voice that we usually are suppressing, and it's not like you're staying there, because the thing is, then you're just creating more of what you don't want. You're going to feel stuck. Your life isn't going to change. It's saying, hey, you know what? This is how I feel. This is the truth. It's kind of like truth tapping. This is the truth of what I'm feeling right now. This is like, okay, you know what? This sucks. Like, I'm going to say that. Like, I don't like it, and it's tough. And I don't like aging and all the things that go with that. And then as we tap, because I tried to kind of incorporate everything, you can tap on a very specific symptom and you'll start to feel some shift, and you'll feel shift even if you're doing more general. I tried to move from the negative to a more loving and accepting, like, you know what, I can eat better, I can reduce my stress, I can have a spiritual practice with my creator and ask for help, and I can find my community that will support me. And then I hopefully will have an easier transition through this phase of my life, because it can definitely be a major phase.
I think when we don't talk about the pain, we're negating that feeling. And so it needs to be addressed, and not to be all, everything's great, but to navigate through what's not great and transitioning in some way. So I have a question, because I have been told, hydrate, hydrate, hydrate before tapping.
Yes.
I'm just sitting here and tapping on my forehead, my cheekbone, my chin, and all those places. What's dehydrating me in that process?
Well, you're moving energy, and anytime you do any kind of energy work, it's the same thing. Like if you were to get a massage, you have a masseuse they're moving the lymph, they're moving energy. I mean, they're touching acupressure points, and it helps clear the old energy. Some practitioners, they'll shake their hands out after they tap. So if you want to do that, walk around. I wouldn't do anything super strenuous right after. Just get the water in, put some really good brand of sea salt, so you're getting those minerals in there. Want to be hydrated anyway. Most of us, I think, tend to be dehydrated. So that's the reason. So before, you can do it while you're tapping, after, certainly after.
That's awesome. You don't just offer EFT tapping. Talk to me about working with a woman on her diet. What does that process look like? How do you figure out what an individual needs or doesn't need when it comes to nutrition?
I think there's so much information out there now, and it can be very confusing, and we can look up anything. But sometimes people are trying things because it's the latest thing. And, oh, I heard about this food, and I heard about this food group and this mineral and this whatever. And I try to just listen to what a normal day would be for their food, because it's super important. And sometimes people can just get overwhelmed and they're eating stuff and they don't really know what's working and what's not. And sometimes we just make a few tweaks and they can just feel better. They'll have more energy. They'll feel clear, they'll have more clarity. So that's kind of what I do, is I actually write down what they're eating. I don't sit there and be like, okay, well, how many calories was that? And exactly how many ounces did you eat of that meat or this chicken, or how much fat? It's not like that. Let's just look at it. I don't do anything extreme. Like, hey, you know what? Maybe bring in some of this and take out a little bit of that. And I really do try to get people to get the toxic food out, though, because you're not going to feel good if you're eating most of the food that's in most grocery stores.
So when I hear people talk about toxic food, the first thing that comes to mind are like overly processed foods, a lot of sugar, a lot of white flour, a lot of high fat, or in particular saturated fat. Is there something I'm missing in all that? What else is something that you encourage people to not have too much of?
I think generally you hit it on the head. And I understand people can come to me and they're like, I'm vegan, or I'm like, fine, we'll work with you. I just want to make sure that people are feeling the best because I've experimented
Right.
with diets and I'm not so concerned with the label as how are you feeling? I just like, are you feeling good on that diet? Or are you feeling like you have to be on this diet because you read about it or because you're partner is that, or you grew up in a family that was like that? Is it working for you? And I've tried several different diets, and you really have to tune in and you can start to eat something and go, okay, this is healthy, but it doesn't really agree with me. I don't feel that great. So it's a gentle approach. I think as we age, it's like we have a buildup of toxins anyway. So the cleaner we can eat, the better off we're just it's going to put you ahead of the game. I mean, disease and symptoms can start at a young age, but a lot of times they start when you're older. And I think you can really stop that with a
Sure.
basic thing that you're doing every day, like eating.
Thank you for that because this is the podcast about clutter and I help people with clutter. And while we can talk about your stuff, I really want to talk about the mental clutter. And you're right. When it comes to the diet industry, oh my God, haven't we tried it all? Paleo, carnivore. My father used to eat for his blood type.
Yeah.
The Atkins and South Beach and cabbage soup diet and intermittent fasting, which I happen to do and works well for me.
Right.
And that is not about intermittent fasting helping me lose weight. It is helping me keep my blood sugar, and my energy levels in a good place. And I have been convinced my whole life that I had to have breakfast, that breakfast was the most important meal of the day. And the reality was, I was never hungry in the morning, often a little bit on the nauseous side in the morning. I preferred to wait, before eating. And I feel like intermittent fasting was the first thing that said, and that's okay. Not using it for dieting purposes and managing caloric intake, but rather making sure that my body felt right. So I listed like a lot of diets. We left so much out. So I appreciate you addressing that because I think that if we're talking about clutter, it comes from media and that media can be what diet are you doing? What exercise are you doing? What supplements are you taking? What vitamins, minerals, and nutrients are you consuming? What medications are you taking? And then all of a sudden it's very easy to feel like the stress of trying to decide what is going to work best for you.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes, it can be a lot.
So
And
much.
that's why I said,
Yeah.
like, that's why I go back to that. How do you feel? Like, do you feel good? If intermittent fasting makes you feel good and it works with you, by all
Right.
means, do it.
Right.
It really, everything is kind of an experiment. I mean, from tapping to food to supplements to, I mean, everything. You kind of just have to try it and see where it lands.
I have a dear friend who's also a coach. We were weight loss coaches together for many, many years. And she's so great at saying, take off the judge's robes and put on the lab coat. Stop judging yourself and everybody and everything. Be willing to experiment, but don't just experiment. Actually sit back and reflect on what's working and what's not working and potentially why or what's getting in your way, all the things. And I always really appreciated that take because it meant that you were never doing anything wrong. You just didn't find the right thing for you, which may be completely different than the other people in your life.
Exactly. I agree. And when you make these changes, just to have a non-judgmental journal. Like I'm going to put whatever I want in here. I always encourage people to have a tapping journal as well. What did they feel shift? What came up for them? And of course there's a lot that can come up around food and weight. That's tough because it's tied into body image and our confidence, and a lot of it comes from our childhood. There's just no escaping that. Can all be connected together. And it's just all about like, hey, you know what? This is my life. You know what? I jumped into this life and I didn't know what I had to heal. I'm committed and I'm not going to give up, because people do. They can feel very defeated. It's understandable. There's a lot of outside noise that can make us feel depressed and overwhelmed and like we don't know if we're coming or going. But you have to hang in there. You have to, and tying it into the whole spiritual component. You're being watched with loving arms and support. And it might not feel like it at times, but we all are, every one of us, special, and we're loved and supported. And I believe that anybody can heal from anything. Maybe that's a tall statement, but I've been very, very sick. And there's been many times when I didn't think I was going to come back, and I did. There's a peace that comes through and a confidence that comes from immense struggle that's amazing. That, you're like, if I can get through that, I can get through anything. And it's incredible.
I appreciate that. Like we were just talking about, what is the clutter associated with all of this? I try to warn my guests, because this is the podcast about clutter. We're going to talk about their clutter too. But when I talk about clutter, if anybody is listening to this podcast for the first time, we talk about stuff. We talk about the things that my grandmother left me. We talk about the clothing in the closet and varying sizes. We're talking about the jewelry and accessories and the shoes and the dishes and the plates and all of those things. But when I talk about clutter, I am also talking about your calendar, overextending yourself, clutter of people in your life, people having expectations and needing your help without allowing you to help yourself. We're talking about the 24-hour news cycle. We're talking about social media and what is no longer normal, or we assume what is normal are the fancy things we see on social media. And then we get into the mental and emotional, the self-limiting beliefs, the things that we tell ourselves that simply aren't true, and all of that stuff. And I left clutter out. There's a whole lot I left out. Where's your clutter, Wendy?
Oh gosh, I love this. And I know it is all about clutter, and you're absolutely right. It can all be clutter, really, when you think about it. It's crazy. I'm always trying to organize more and get rid of the physical clutter. And I know in the past we've talked about inheriting things and that's a whole other story about the attachment to those things. But I'd have to say it's just some old limiting beliefs that still have crept up. And when you're sick at a young age, you grow up with that victim mindset. And I'm still working through that. I mean, all of us are works in progress. But I notice like when I'm tapping or even just meditating, I'm like, you know what, this is still cropping up a little bit here and there for me. I feel like I've done a lot of work, but I would never go so far as to say that I'm completely enlightened. I mean, there's no way. To me, I always will be working on myself. But I'd have to say, yeah, some of the beliefs about having been sick, there can be a lot of trauma that can be associated with that. And to me, that's clutter. I mean, in the deepest sense, it stops you from moving forward on a future that you deserve to create. If you're in the past and your mind is cluttered with these old toxic beliefs of who you used to be, there's absolutely no room for anything new to come in. And that's where you have to just do the work. So it's the old clutter thoughts and beliefs.
So you made me think of something, because you talk about the, like the victim personality or the victim thoughts. And in your experience, them being, the physical pain you were going through. But I think about how many people would benefit from tapping on trauma. And so much of the trauma we experience before we're 7 years old, whether it's parents who are always fighting and don't have a good relationship, or financial struggles, really serious, big trauma like physical, emotional, sexual abuse. And it is a terrible thing that has happened to you. But
Absolutely.
At some point, we benefit from no longer being the victim and rising above. But it's so important to have tools to do that, as opposed to just trying to like power through and be stronger somehow. And so one of the things that you touched on was that you're not completely enlightened. None of us are. I don't know. When I get the Dalai Lama on, maybe I will have the most enlightened person in the world.
Right.
Stay tuned for that episode.
Yeah.
But that's why we call it a practice. It's a meditation practice. It's a yoga practice. It's an EFT tapping practice. The implication being that we're consistently doing it, learning new ways to do it, getting better at it, but there's no finished when it comes to these kind of practices. Is that fair to say?
I completely agree. Absolutely. We're always working on ourselves. We're always discovering. And I think just to be gentle, be loving, be kind to yourself, treat yourself like you're your best friend. What would your best friend say to you? They'd be like, "Are you kidding? Like, go easy. Like, yeah, do the work." But you know what? You didn't know. None of us knew. We didn't know what we were doing. We didn't know what beliefs we were getting programmed with. But we do have a responsibility to work through it. The things that you do want in your life, it's going to be hard to have them edge their way in if you healed. It doesn't have to be super serious. You can laugh through it a little bit. There's nothing laughable about trauma at all. I mean, it's very, very difficult. But as you're become more gentle, I've noticed even in myself, as I've started to do some of the work and healed some of these layers, I recognize the triggers, and that's what I'm talking about when I talk about humor. Like I can kind of laugh at it now, some of it, not all of it, but I can see it, and I recognize it, and I'm like, okay, I know what's going on, universe. I get it. I know why you sent me this person or this situation or that circumstance, because this is what I still need to work on. And and you're like, oh, I got it. And when you get to that point, you know that you've come pretty far, because you're more at peace with yourself.
Right, right. That is so helpful to hear. I was going to say, that sounds like a great closing thought, but is there anything else that you would want listeners to take away today?
I'd have to say just that you've got this. Don't give up. You're so much stronger than you realize. No matter what you've been through, you can do it. You can get the diet that supports you. You can reduce the stress. You can have a beautiful relationship with source, with whether you call it God or the universe or whatever it might be, that is just always looking out for you. I just want to instill that belief in people, because I know what it's like to be kind of at the brink where you're like, you know what, I'm giving up. I can't do this anymore. I hate my life. That whole thing, just, you got it. You can do it. You're all amazing people. And you have so much strength and wisdom within you.
Thank you so much for being here. You have so much to contribute when it comes to all of those aspects of clutter that people aren't thinking about, and, our body and our brain, as opposed to just the stuff around us. So thank you so much for being here and being a part of this.
Oh, thank you, Melanie. It's wonderful to be with you. It's so easy to talk to you. You're a wonderful host.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of Lighten Up, the Art of Living Clutter-Free. I hope you found a spark of inspiration to help declutter not just your space, but your mind and life as well. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who could use a little lightness in their life. Remember, it's not about being perfect, it's about progress. Small steps lead to big changes, and I'm here to help you every step of the way. For more tips, resources, and ways to connect, check out my website, follow me on social media, and don't forget to check out the Design Your Healthy Life Strategy program to take your transformation even further. Until next time, keep letting go of what no longer serves you and making room for what truly lights you up.